It's pretty chilly back here today. It's probably been close to a week since I've done anything out here in the workshop. And the reason for that is one, work, two, because I'm sick. My voice is still not back 100% as of yet. But I'm getting tired and more tired of sitting on that couch and doing nothing, basically. I'm trying my best to edit some stuff, but even with what I'm trying to do, it's not me. I don't enjoy sitting on the couch. So what we're going to do today is we're going to work on this wagon. So after being sick for so long, still not 100% though, as you can tell from my voice, I'm getting tired of this car being in the shop now. And it's kind of my fault. And the reason for that is I've made it now to the point so it can't be driven outside. This car is done. I'm not going to be running anymore, as you guys can tell from the front of the frame being off. But the motor's still good, the transmission's still good. And now that we have a standalone harness for these older motors, I'd like to get this motor out. Now the subframe is bent quite bad on this car, but it's still easier to remove the motor on the subframe. So what we're going to do is we're going to center this car on the hoist so that we can actually lift it. And then we're going to start the dismantling process, starting with the dash bar, and then we're going to disassemble the front end, drop the engine, the transmission, the subframe, the suspension, the steering shaft, all that out. Whew. Holy, I'm gonna have to feel good still. And what we're basically going to do is get this car 100% stripped and ready for scrap. But like I said, the first thing that we have to do is get it centered in this hoist. Because it was so hard to get inside here, it is not square at all. So let's get this thing scooted over, and looks like we got to bring it ahead quite a bit as well. But let's get going. You guys have seen me take these motors out a couple times now, and I have to tell you, I'm getting better at it. So, there's only a couple things that you really have to disconnect. One being the shifter cable for the transmission. Now, if these are broken, I like to try to save as many of these as possible because these are very, very common items to break on the front of your Toyota Camry. So what I do is I just remove it, put it over top of the firewall. The engine harness where it goes through into the cab has to be pushed into here, into the engine bay, or where the engine bay used to be. Fuel lines have to be disconnected. These older Toyota Camrys have a little bit extra here on the driver's side fender that has to come off, the spark arrestor, or DuraSpark kind of thing for these things. If you're used to your Fords, it's called a DuraSpark, the same with AMC. But this has got to come off and go with the motor. The couple of grounds, your heater hose that goes into the inside, but mine's already looped. And your throttle cable's got to come off. That's basically it for the motor, to be honest. It's super, super easy. The other thing that you guys are probably going to have to do is take out your power steering reservoir, because that's connected to the motor. It just quickly disconnects off of here, and then there should be like 1 or 2 bolts for your return line. But yeah, this thing's going to be out very shortly. So let's get the throttle cable, the transmission cable, the fuel line, the electrical, and the DuraSpark, and then we have to disconnect our main power because we run it a little bit differently for Demolition Derby, but then we have to disconnect our main power. So let's get that done. seen me pull these motors out quite a bit before, and nothing's gonna really change about pulling these motors. What I do is I just get my little scissor table, put it right underneath, just like that. Now, because I've already got the front of the frame cut off, so the front body mounts, I do have to support the engine, subframe, and transmission while I take out the struts. So I'm just going to center this underneath there. Has to go a little bit more. Just like that. You don't need a scissor table. If you just have yourself a nice amount of jack stands, that would work as well. Okay. Whew. So the engine, subframe, and transmission are now supported. What we're going to do, excuse me, is take off this upper body mount and take out the two struts. Struts completely out. And then we're going to make sure that the brake lines don't get broken, because these are actually steel braided brake lines on this car. I don't know why somebody would put that on a Toyota Camry wagon. I'm not complaining though. Steel braided brake lines are less likely to have rubbed and break, so we're just going to undo them. We're going to try to save them back as far as we can, because I would like to try to reuse them, that's for sure. You guys see me take these out plenty of times before. Nothing's going to really change too much up here. That's one of the bonuses of only doing one car. Now what I mean by that is you get used to it. And that's a good thing. You eventually get to the point where you don't need to buy any parts. Like if you guys remember on that HHR, I bent a lower driver's side control arm to the point where the axle wouldn't stay in, and I basically had to go to a local scrapyard and buy a new control arm. And the shitty part is I could have bought a brand new one off Rock Auto for less than what I paid at the local scrapyard, but I needed it that day. So there you go. Now let's get out the bottoms of these struts. We're just getting the 12mm bolt out for the steering rack right now. But the struts are giving us quite a hard time. I think they've been on there for a long, long time. So I don't know if I can remove those because they are giving me such an issue. I'm going to try this side, but my gun won't undo this side. So that's pretty tight if my gun will not undo. This thing's good for 375 foot-pounds. So they're really on there. If I get one side, that's going to be good enough to get this thing out. And then I can do it on the ground, I guess. Alright, this side's coming. So all you use is a 22mm and a 22mm wrench, and they just come right off. Now that that side's done, we can break out a hammer. We can get this strut out. With one strut out, that will be enough to get the whole system off. Yeah, this thing hasn't been apart before, that's for sure. Oh yeah, there she goes. Now I'm a little nervous to be using this 12mm. I've lost every single 12mm that I have here. Sorry. This is a 1/2" drive gun. This is a 1/2" to 3/8 reducer. This reducer goes from 3/8 to 1/4 inch. I'm using a 1/4 inch drive 12mm socket on the heavy impact guns because I have lost every other single 12mm except for that one. Christmas is coming, honey. Get me some 12mm, please. am I kidding? She doesn't watch any of my YouTube channel. She's too busy watching makeup tutorials. Alright, she's out. That's only taken an hour and a half of negotiating. So now the only thing left is the 14 mil to hold on the subframe connectors and the 19 mil to actually hold the subframe on. So let's get going on that. Even with a hoist, you end up using a creeper half the time. So let's get these 14 mils off out here. Maybe I should go put some safety glasses on. That's the last thing I need. Ah, screw it. I'll just close my eyes every time I go to use it. And there's your subframe bolt right out. So let's go do this to the other side. When I bought this car off a buddy, he says to me, don't put it back on the road. And now that I look more and more at it, I'm starting to see why. All that subframe there, actually that's not even subframe, that's unibody. Looks like it's filled with caulking. Maybe some PL premium there. Alright, that bolt's out. Oh, look at some grease of some kind's coming out of there. That's not good. I don't know what kind of grease that is. Probably power steering. It's not important if you don't know what it is. As of right now, I'm pretty sure everything I need is disconnected, including this sensor on the firewall, power brakes, the electrical is ready to come through the firewall. The past driver's side strut's out. This strut I cannot get out because it is really, really tight. All the subframe bolts are out, steering knuckles out. I think she's ready to come out, so we might need a pry bar for that passenger side, but let's bring up the hoist. Oh, she's still holding on. What's keeping her on there? It's the steering. Ooh. So you look for the opening, and then you just grab a big screwdriver and a hammer and you just open that opening up just a bit. Open the opening! I'm gonna say the patented word, open sesame. We'll have to break out the 3-foot password, which is open now. There you go, I got her. So let's keep coming up now. I think that... before we go too high, let's just do another check. Make sure everything is coming out nice. Even that strut ended up coming out nice. Looks like I broke this axle. Oh, this axle's already broken, so never mind that. This axle was already broken. Pull the electrical through, just like that. Everything looks to be going pretty good. Let's keep coming up. So the engine's starting to grab the shifter cable. So, bring this engine down. There you go. So now the engine, subframe, everything like that is out. This car didn't really bend that bad. I know that the front frame was wrecked, but at the firewall it hasn't bent. Oh, come on, give me back my screwdriver. So here's another helpful hint or tip for you guys, however you want to decide. If you want to get rid of the rear brakes on your Toyota, you can do it with the engine in. It's just a lot easier for me to show you. These two brake lines that right here that come out of the top of this ABS unit sensor, these are your rear brakes. So if you pinch these two off, that's how you get rid of your rear brakes and you just keep the front. That is even with the ABS unit over here. So just by taking these two out right here, that gets rid of your rear brakes. So let that be a hint to you guys.